8 spine-chilling encounters exposed, terrifying tales from haunted deep Appalachia revealed. In the heart of ancient mountains, where the forests whisper secrets to the night, a darkness loomed. This isn't just any darkness, it grips your soul, twists your heart, and plays with your mind. Welcome to the small Appalachian town where Sarah and her children had come to start anew but were only met with a chilling past that wouldn't stay buried. Each shadow cast by the overgrown trees held a haunting story, a warning to all who dared ignore it. The town thrummed with unsettling folklore, tales of spirits lurking among the brambles, feasting on despair like vultures on carrion. Sarah, young mother of 2, felt the weight of her husband's tragic death pressing down like an unseen specter. At the diner, where she worked, laughter mingled with the clatter of dishes, but for her, the joy felt far away. Jamie, her curious 8-year-old, and little Lily, just 5, often regaled her with stories of ghosts that danced in the moonlight. "Mommy," Jamie would say wide-eyed, "the woods are alive." Oh, how she wished her children would let their imaginations run free without the darkness clinging to them. One particular warm evening, after tucking her children into bed, a soft knock echoed through the silence of her modest home. Expecting a neighbor, she opened the door to find Tom, her late husband's best friend, standing there with a six-pack and an unsettling grin. He strolled in as if he belonged, but an icy chill clutched at Sarah's spine. They exchanged pleasantries, but his gaze lingered too long, an unwelcome presence, something sinister smoldering beneath his surface. As the sun dipped behind the mountains, a bang shattered the night. The back door rattled, and then there were whispers drifting from the trees, tender and eerie, as if calling her name. "Mommy! Did you hear that?" Lily squealed, her little body shaking with fear. But Sarah dismissed it, forcing a smile, her heart racing, the air thick with tension. "Just the wind, sweetheart," she murmured, but deep down, a primal fear gnawed at her. In the days that followed, Tom appeared at all hours, insistent under the pretense of checking in on her family. His concern felt heavy, too suffocating. With every visit, the shadows deepened. Something was amiss, an itch creeping under her skin, driving her to confront him. "Why are you here, Tom?" "Really?" she asked one evening, the tension palpable. He laughed it off, "Just looking out for you. Remember the bond we shared?" But that laughter carried something dark, something that set her heart racing. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. She decided to escape. A brief walk into the woods might do her good. As darkness gathered like a shroud around them, shadows blinked in and out of existence. Panic rose in her throat as she heard the rustling behind, a presence lurking in the thick of the underbrush. "Faster," she urged her children, her heart racing as dread flooded her being. Then they broke into a clearing, the moonlight revealing what stalked them. There stood Tom, a twisted smile painted across his face, illuminated like a wraith. "I just wanted to see you all safe," he crooned, and her blood ran cold. The true horror was no longer confined to the tales of spirits, but stood before her, one she couldn't escape. With every fiber of her being, she knew the darkness was not just in the woods, but in her life, closing in with a familiar and terrible embrace. Adrenaline surged through Sarah's veins as she clutched her children tightly. Tom's sinister grin stretched wider, an unfurling horror that pushed against the edges of her sanity. "What do you want from us?" she shouted, her voice cracking. "Just a little company," he said, his tone mocking, edged with something cold and predatory. The shadows around him seemed to deepen, coiling like serpents, as if they responded to his dark desire. Jamie pulled on her sleeve, his eyes wide. "Mommy, please, let us go home." The boy's fear mirrored her own, piercing her heart like an arrow. No, Jamie. Stay close, she rasped, holding Lily to her chest, a shield against the malevolence that surrounded them. Panic fluttered within her, a bird trapped against bars, fighting for escape. Why run? Tom taunted, stepping forward, the moonlight framing him in a ghostly halo. This place is home now. We can be a family, just like before. His words were a twisted reminder of her past, and they wrapped around her throat like a noose. She took a step back, moving the children with her, but the night felt alive, the forest closing in, the trees leaning closer as if to listen. Whispers echoed in the wind, merging with her frantic thoughts. They were the very same voices Jamie spoke of, siren calls of the forest, urging them to listen, to heed the warnings buried deep in the soil. Let us go. Now! Sarah yelled, yanking Jamie with her. They turned, sprinting back toward the perceived safety of their home. But the shadows were relentless. A branch snapped behind them, echoing like thunder, and a low growl rippled through the trees, a promise of things that lurked in the dark. Mommy! Lily cried, twisting in her arms. Sarah glanced back, dread pooling in her stomach. Tom stood watching, legs planted, the gentle breeze rustling his hair, but his eyes were vacant, hollow black holes that swallowed the light. Sarah, he called again, the name dripping like honey, sticky with a sweetness that seemed to mask a deadly intent. You can't hide from what's inside you, what you are. That phrase pierced her, a declaration that struck with the force of death. What's he talking about? She thought, fear wrapping around her like a shroud. She had to focus, to think. In desperate haste, they plunged deeper into the trees, weaving between the brambles and branches that clawed at their clothes. Shadows flickered behind them, tormentors in pursuit. She could feel their urgency, a darkness eager to catch them, to seize her children. Then, the ground gave way. They stumbled into an old, crumbling graveyard that had been forgotten, choked by weeds and darkened by despair. The tombstones jutted from the ground like jagged teeth, each one a reminder that death had once claimed many here. Mommy, I'm scared, Jamie whimpered, his voice shaking. Shoo, listen, she whispered, her heart pounding as the wind moaned softly through the grave markers. It was a different sound now, almost like laughter, echoing through the air, carrying the weight of centuries of secrets. Death was all around them, and if they didn't leave soon, their fates might be sealed like those resting beneath their feet. A flicker of movement caught her eye, a figure darting through the rows of stones, a fleeting glimpse of something pale. Sarah's heart raced. Had they stumbled upon more than just the remains of the past? Run! She insisted, but Tom's shadow loomed steadily closer, laughter echoing like a symphony of despair. The air vibrated with danger. As they broke from the graves, a voice echoed in her mind. You cannot escape the darkness within. With the forest withering behind them, Sarah felt a chill course through her. As they fled, the wind shifted, and a blood-curdling scream erupted from the woods. What had she unleashed in her desperate fight for survival? And as Tom's shadow loomed closer, Sarah faced a dreadful question: what if darkness was a part of her she could never outrun? Branches whipped against Sarah's face as she pressed on, her breath coming in short gasps. The laughter echoed behind her, bouncing off the gravestones in dissonant waves. Jamie stumbled, and she reached down to grab his hand, pulling him up as she sprinted. His wide eyes reflected the terror, mirroring her own dread. Mommy, I can't keep up. He squeaked, panic lacing his voice. Just a little further. We need to find help. She gasped, but a part of her questioned, help from whom? The thought lingered, heavy and unsettling. Just then, the wind shifted sharply, carrying a new sound, a chorus of whispers that danced through the air. It was as if the very earth around them longed to share a secret, begging her to stop, to listen. But she couldn't. Not now. The darkness seemed alive, pressing in, constricting like a serpent. The tombstones appeared to lean towards her, as though they were witnesses to her fear, mocking her desperate flight. And behind, she could still feel Tom's presence. The shadows lingered, his familiar smile a twisted echo haunting her. "Mommy!" Lily cried, her small voice thin and strained. "I'm scared. I want to go home." "Me too, baby, me too," Sarah shouted, forcing her legs to move faster, heart hammering like a war drum. They broke through the trees into a dimly lit path lined with wildflowers. But the serene beauty only heightened her anxiety, like a still lake hiding what lurked beneath. Suddenly, a towering figure rose in the distance, blocking their escape. The moonlight flickered, revealing the outline of a gaunt man wearing tattered clothes, his face shadowed. Sarah's grip tightened on her children. "Stay behind me," she ordered, her voice trembling. The man's eyes glinted like shards of glass. "Lost, are we?" His voice was a chilling rasp that seemed to resonate from the dark itself, an echo of all the dread that surrounded them. "Let us go," Sarah shouted, searching for any hint of compassion. "We don't want any trouble." A slow, sinister smile spread across the stranger's face. "Trouble? Oh, trouble is just a part of the game. Aren't you curious about the legends? About what waits for you in the shadows?" Just then, a scream pierced the night, a sound like a banshee's wail. It jerked Sarah's attention back toward the woods, and instinctively she tightened her hold on Jamie and Lily. They couldn't linger here, not with danger at every turn. "Please. We just want to go home," she pleaded, desperation flooding her tone. "Home? But you've already come to a different kind of home, my dear. You brought yourself here," he said softly, his eyes narrowing, and for a moment, his expression turned serious. "The forest isn't just a collection of trees. It remembers. It remembers you." A chill coursed through Sarah. The way he spoke, it felt like he reached into her very being, pulling out the fears she thought she had buried. Could it be true? "I won't let you take my children," she shouted, the fight rising in her, but laughter erupted from the trees again, deep and mocking. Tom's silhouette loomed larger behind them. "No need to protect them, Sarah," he said, his voice smooth as silk. "They belong here with us." In that moment, the ground seemed to tremble, shaking beneath her feet. Roots coiled up like snakes, reaching out, eager for her or her children. Sarah felt panic cling to her like a second skin as she fought with every ounce of strength. "Move!" she screamed, pulling the kids with her, but the forest roared back. "Where are you going?" the gaunt man called, his tone darkly amused. A rustle in the bushes made her turn her head, and she saw a pale figure, flickering, its features indistinct. Was it a ghost? Or worse? "Run, Sarah!" Jamie cried, tugging at her shirt. And just as they turned away, the figure lunged, hands outstretched. In that second, Sarah felt the grip of the forest and the weight of her past close in. As they dashed back into the trees, she was left grappling with a terrifying thought: had they truly escaped? Or were they still trapped, ensnared by something that wouldn't let them go? With every breath, she could feel the darkness breathing back. Would they make it to safety, or was the hunt only just beginning? The path ahead twisted and turned, and in the distance, more whispers swirled, growing louder, beckoning. Could they outrun what was coming for them? Was there any hope left? Branches clawed at Sarah's arms as she yanked the kids along, fear clawing at her mind. A low, rumbling laugh followed them through the trees, morphing into a sinister chant that seemed to blend into the rustling leaves. Jamie tugged at her sleeve, his voice trembling. "Mommy, I can feel it, it's still here." Sarah shot a glance over her shoulder. The gaunt man was now a mere shadow, but the air felt thick with malevolence. She pressed on, muscles screaming, heart pounding hard enough to drown out the sinister whispers. "Keep going. Just a little further." She gasped, her voice hoarse. Lily clung to her side, eyes wide with terror. "Where are we going, Mommy?" "I don't know." Sarah breathed, panic flaring. Anywhere but here. The path narrowed, swallowed by a dense thicket illuminated only by a pale moon. The laughter faded, replaced by a new sound, the distant echo of footsteps crunching leaves, getting louder. They weren't alone. Sarah's thoughts raced. Would they stumble into another trap? Tom's laughter hummed in her mind, the shadow of a memory she wanted to escape. But in this darkness, it felt like he watched. Like he knew every desperate choice she made. A flicker of movement on her right caught her attention. A figure danced along the edges of the trees, always just out of reach. She squinted, heart thudding violently in her chest. As if sensing her gaze, the figure turned, a girl, pale and fragile, hair wild and tangled. A ghostly smile lined her face, but her eyes were hollow, sunken into a face smeared with dirt. "Join us," the girl sang, voice echoing like a distant bell. "We're waiting for you." "No," Sarah shouted, shaking her head. "We need to go." But as they continued, the forest began to shift. Roots twisted underfoot, dragging at her ankles. The trees seemed to lean in, their branches stretching like hands, desperate to reach her, hold her. A primal instinct flared within her. They wouldn't take her children. She wouldn't let that happen. "It's a trap," she gasped, yanking Jamie closer. "Trust me. Don't look back." Yet the whispers morphed from enticing songs into a haunting cacophony of voices. Each one crashed against her eardrums. "They know you, Sarah. They remember what you've done, Mommy." Jamie cried, pulling free of her grasp, taking a step backward into the shadows. "I have to go to her. She's calling me." "Jamie, no!" she screamed. Panic cut through her as she lunged, snatching his shirt just before he vanished into the dark. Sarah wheeled around, eyes wide. The girl melted back into the trees, her figure twirling like mist and drawing a chill through Sarah's bones. The breath caught in her throat as she fought to keep the terror at bay. "Please. You can't go there. We have to keep moving." But her heart sank, her words felt futile. The forest was alive with desire, racing forward. She felt the weight of eyes watching her, slinking between the branches. The whispers grew louder. "Why run? Join us, be part of the shadows." Trembling, Sarah glanced back at where the girl had disappeared. Was she another lost soul, trapped forever? Suddenly, the laughter erupted once more, a deep chorus bubbling with sinister delight. They were being hunted, and the darkness embraced it with glee. Sarah's pace quickened. But the path twisted into a clearing, uninviting and foreboding. There, standing in eerie stillness, was an old, crumbling stone well, its mouth gaping wide like a dark throat. A chill swept through her as she felt an unnatural pull to it, as if the well beckoned her to come closer. "Mommy!" Jamie yelled, his voice snapping Sarah back. "What's in there?" "I don't know, but we can't stay," she said, her voice shaking. As she turned to flee, the anguished cries of the lost souls reverberated through the air. "Help us, find us!" Her breath caught at the sound until a new, guttural growl escaped the woods beyond the clearing. It was raw and primal, striking fear deep into her heart. "Run!" Sarah screamed, bolting away from the well, dragging her children behind her, the laughter of the forest trailing with them. But the well's darkness seemed to pulse. With each step they took, calling to them, weaving through the underbrush, making escape uncertain. Would the forest consume them before they found safety? Ahead, she spotted a flicker of light breaking through the trees. A cabin? A way out? But dread twisted in her gut. What if it was another trap? "Mommy, I'm scared," Lily whimpered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "Stay close," Sarah shouted, determination hardening her resolve, but as they approached the light, the whispers swelled a crescendo of voices, and amidst them, one unmistakable name rang out, commanding and firm. "Sarah!" She froze, her heart shattering with dread. In that moment, all hope of escape felt like a fragile thread ready to snap. As she turned, eyes wide with horror, the shadows danced closer, and she was left with an unshakable question clinging to her mind: what awaited them at the light? Was it hope or a deeper darkness yet to be revealed? The flickering light beckoned them closer, pulsing like a heartbeat against the encroaching gloom. For an instant, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope pierce the suffocating despair. Was it a cabin? A sanctuary from the searchers hidden in the trees? Before she could weigh her options, another growl echoed through the woods, closer this time. Her pulse raced, dread pooling in her stomach. "Mommy!" Lily clutched her hand tighter, nails digging into her skin. "What's in there?" Her heart twisted at the fear in Lily's voice, but she steadied herself. I don't know, but we have to find out." With each step toward the light, the shadows slithered at her heels, making the air thick and suffocating. The trees surrounding them creaked and whispered, like 1,000 voices urging her back, warning her of the danger that lay just ahead. As they neared the clearing, the shape of the cabin became clearer, a decrepit structure swallowed by vines and darkness. The porch sagged, and the windows were cracked like grim eyes watching their approach. A chill settled deep in her bones. "It looks abandoned," Jamie said, peering up at her. "Maybe it's safe," Sarah urged, but doubt clawed at her mind. What if it was a trap? What if they stumbled into the lair of whatever hunted them? Unexpectedly, the door creaked open with a low groan, as if inviting them in. The darkness inside felt alive, thrumming with an intensity that made her hair stand on end. She hesitated but then felt the pull of urgency. "Get inside," she whispered fiercely, pulling them swiftly toward the door. As soon as they crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind them, echoing through the empty space like a thunderclap. They stood in a cramped, dim room, a single lantern casting long, flickering shadows on the walls. Old furniture lay askew, a thick layer of dust blanketing everything. It felt like stepping into a forgotten time, a place swallowed by history and secrets. "Mommy?" Jamie's voice quivered. "Are we safe?" "Not yet," she replied, scanning the room. She sensed a presence, something lurking just out of view, waiting, watching. The wooden floor creaked ominously beneath their feet as she stepped further inside. Suddenly, a chilling laughter erupted from the very walls of the cabin, reverberating in her bones and wrapping around her like a vice. The walls seemed to breathe in and out, a living thing that pulsed with a hunger of its own. "Help us find us," the voices wailed, blending into a haunting chorus that clawed at her sanity. "Mommy!" Lily screamed, her eyes wide with terror. "Make it stop. Stay close," Sarah shouted, fighting the rising panic in her throat. She grabbed her kids, holding them tight against her. "We can't stay here. We need to find a way out." She turned toward the back of the cabin, desperately searching for another door or window, but they were all barricaded. A growing dread settled in her chest. They had walked into something far worse than the forest. The cabin was a snare, and they were its prey. "Sarah," a voice whispered, soft yet insistent. "You know what you need to do. Find us." Terror gripped her. It sounded like the girl from the woods. Was it an illusion or a sinister reality? She recoiled, shaking her head. "No. I want tea." The laughter surged again, rising to piercing heights, the walls beginning to tremble. Just then, a pale figure slipped into view from the shadows, a woman, as ghostly as the girl, her eyes remnants of sorrow and rage. "Join us," she intoned, reaching out with a bony hand that seemed to stretch impossibly far. "No!" Sarah screamed, inching back, her children clinging tighter. The cabin began to twist, the ground beneath them shifting like a live creature. She could feel it, the walls were closing in, the whispers rising to an unbearable pitch. In that moment of dread and despair, the lantern flickered violently, casting the room into darkness. And just as it extinguished, the door behind them burst open, a flood of darkness swept in, laughing in that blinding blackness. Sarah felt her grip on reality slipping. The last thing she heard before the laugh. Swallowed them was a breathless whisper, "You'll never escape," and then there was nothing but silence, thick and suffocating. What had they awakened? And could they ever truly escape the clutches of the shadows? The silence stretched on, a heavy shroud wrapped around them. Breath after breath, Sarah felt the weight of panic clamp down like an iron vice. She strained to listen, to catch any hint of movement, but there was only the palpable blackness and the frantic beating of her own heart, the pulse of dread echoing in her ears. "Mommy?" Lily's small voice broke through the stillness, trembling and fragile. "I'm here, sweetheart," she whispered, trying to sound calm as she clutched her children tighter. But even her own voice sounded distant, as if swallowed by the very shadows that surrounded them. Suddenly, a soft rustle stirred nearby. Sarah's stomach flipped. She turned her head, straining her eyes against the dark, daring it to reveal itself. Out of the nothingness, a figure emerged, a shadow that cut through the black like a knife slicing through fog. "Who's there?" she croaked, her throat dry, every hair on her arms standing on end. A low chuckle slithered through the air, sending chills down her spine. It was almost playful, mockingly taunting her very existence. "You asked to find us. Here we are," the voice sang out, hauntingly sweet, echoing from multiple directions. "What do you want?" Sarah demanded, forcing defiance through her fear. "Join us, be one with the darkness," the voices called, weaving together like a sinister chorus. The lantern flickered back to life with a sudden burst, illuminating a figure standing just a few feet away, a man, his face twisted with a grotesque grin, eyes glowing with a malevolent gleam. His skin was pale like the moon, and his clothing hung in tattered rags, merging him with the shadows that clung to the wall. "Help us," he whispered, and behind him, spectral shapes melded out of the ether, ghostly children, their eyes hollow, mouths twisted in unnatural excitement. They danced around him, chanting softly, an eerie lullaby that curled around Sarah's heart, tempting her to sink into their madness. "No!" she gasped, gripping Jamie and Lily, her mind racing. But the pull of their voices was strong, an insistent tugging at the edges of her sanity. Images flooded her mind, dark forests, children's laughter booming like thunder, cries of despair reverberating through the night. She fought against the plunge into that abyss as the shadows closed in, crawling up her legs, threatening to drag her down. "We only want to be found," the children whispered, their eyes glistening with longing and sadness. Tears filled Sarah's eyes, sharp as glass. "But you're trapped. You shouldn't want to be here. Join us, Mommy," Lily pleaded as she gazed toward the ghostly figure, enchanted by the pale face of a girl who looked so much like her. "No. We will find a way out." Her voice cracked, filled with desperation. But the man stepped closer, his breath chilling the very air around them. "You think you can escape? There is no exit from the shadows. You walk with us now, forever." Panic surged through Sarah, her heart pounding faster than before. The walls began to shake, and the whispers intensified, reverberating like an echo in a canyon. The specters advanced, hands reaching, their ethereal forms slipping closer, wanting to pull her into their eternal torment. Without thinking, she turned. "Run! We have to run!" She could feel the cold hands grasping at her shoulders, but fear propelled her forward. She yanked at the door, the wood heavy beneath her fingers. It wouldn't budge. The shadows behind her writhed and twisted, a living ocean of terror, beckoning her back. Just then, a harsh light flared from the depths of the cabin, slicing through the darkness. Shadows recoiled, hissing, as the brightness revealed ancient symbols painted on the walls, words that held power, words that spoke warnings. But what did they mean? "Mommy!" Jamie whimpered, fear pouring from him like a waterfall. "Hold on!" Sarah urged, struggling against the oppressive gloom, determination replacing dread as she focused on the light. It flickered, pulsed, as if it were alive, an escape route beckoning her to unravel its secret. As she ran toward the light, the whispers turned to screams, the shadows clawing at her legs to pull her back into the abyss. Could she reach the truth before it was too late? The door slammed shut with a thunderous bang behind her, leaving her trapped between the light and the shadows. What power lay in those runes? What fate awaited her and the children? And in that moment, she realized this was just the beginning. The light pulsed brightly, drawing Sarah and her children forward. She felt the warmth brush against her skin, but it was still tinged with something icy, a warning buried beneath its brilliance. With every step, the shadows writhed, their whispers now a cacophony of desperate cries, begging to consume them. "Mommy, it's so pretty," Lily tugged at her hand, her eyes wide and entranced. The ghostly children danced just beyond the threshold of light, their laughter like a broken melody, a siren song that tugged at the corners of Sarah's mind. "Don't look at them, Lily. Keep your eyes on me," she cried, her voice slicing through the fog of mesmerizing allure. Yet, doubt gnawed at her heart. What if the light was just another trap? Unbeknownst to them, a path leading them deeper into despair. Then, out of the chaos, Sarah saw it. A symbol carved into the floor where the light gathered, glimmering faintly. It resembled a spiral, a vortex that seemed to warp the very fabric of reality. "What does it mean?" she whispered, instinctively drawing closer. "Mommy!" Jamie shouted, staring wide-eyed at the swirling shadows, horrified. We're not supposed to be here." The air thickened. Cold tendrils reached for them, searching, probing. Sarah forced her feet to move, desperate to escape as goosebumps erupted down her arms. But the shadows clawed at her legs with a ferocity she couldn't fight against. The spectral figures were now a storm of twisted faces, shrieks and sobs harmonizing in a dreadful symphony that enveloped their senses. "Help us, be free," one of the ghostly children crooned, her voice dripping with sweet misery. Sarah felt her resolve weaken, her heart aching at the sight of their hollow eyes. "Mommy! Stay close!" Jamie screamed, pulling on her sleeve, dragging her back just as another shadow lunged forth, fingers stretching toward her. "No! We can't let them win." Sarah grounded herself, the words barely escaping her throat as she realized a terrible truth. Their fear was the power behind this darkness, feeding it, sustaining its hold. "They want to take us. They want to take you too," Jamie cried, tears streaming down his cheeks. Suddenly, the lantern flickered violently, and Sarah felt a surge of determination. "Listen to me. We're getting out of here." She yanked the children to her, urgency coursing through her veins. The symbols radiated beneath her feet, glittering in constellations and wrapping around their ankles like chains. "Stay in the light," she breathed, leaning against the warmth, a flicker of hope sparking in the depths of her mind. If she could unlock its secrets, perhaps they could break free. The shadows shrieked, rage echoing in the cabin as they twisted and flickered. In that moment, the swirling light became solid, a pathway they could traverse. But something deeper called to her, pulling at her memories, whispering questions that seared with intensity. Was the answer embedded in the runes? "Mommy, I'm scared." Lily's shaky voice brought Sarah back, shutting out the whispers that hinted at her past, the choices she'd made. "Hold on to me," she shouted, charging forward, heart racing. But as they stepped into the circle, the shadows blazed like wildfires, closing in with spine-chilling screams. Their pleas didn't just want to lure, they wanted to consume. A deafening roar filled the air, drowning the children's cries. The symbols surged in brilliance, and Sarah realized too late what would happen next. The very floor trembled beneath them as the world seemed ready to collapse. "Please. No." The light pulsed, shattering the darkness, sending shards of brilliance cascading like fireworks, and then, silence. Sarah blinked, disoriented, clutching her children, but the surroundings had shifted. The walls bled color, the runes pulsating with life. It was more than they had imagined. "Where are we?" Jamie whispered, his small voice trembling in the newfound quiet, but before Sarah could answer, a low growl resonated from the shadows, coiling around them anew, darker and angrier than before. The spirits were still there, their presence like a living thing, watching, waiting. What had they done? What did this new realm hold for them? And as the shadows slithered forward, she realized they might have traded one prison for another, where the true horror was just beginning. The new realm felt wrong. The colors are sickly, swirling like old oil on water. Sarah stumbled, her heart pounding against her ribs. The growl reverberated through the ground, making her feet tremble. Something was alive in the darkness, something hungry. "Stay behind me," she murmured, pulling her children closer. Their eyes darted around, wide with fear. They could sense it, the unholy presence encroaching, hungry for their fear. "Mommy. I don't like it here," Lily whispered, her voice barely audible. The shadows danced just out of sight, teasing her, their elongated fingers beckoning as if they had once known happiness. Sarah forced a smile, grounding herself. "It's going to be okay. Just stay with me." But the crack in her voice betrayed her. The shadows crept forward, thick as smoke, almost tangible. Jamie clutched at her side, his knuckles white. What if it's worse than before? At that moment, the walls shifted, a haunting laugh echoing from deep within the shadows, layered and mocking, pulling at Sarah's sanity. She caught sight of them, figures looming, eyes devoid of the light of the living, twisted into grotesque shapes that should not exist. Help us be free," the voices wailed from all directions, layering their agony like a sickening harmony. A grotesque symphony that clawed at her ears and made her skin crawl. "Do you hear that?" Jamie asked, panic flaring in his eyes. "They want us to help them." "No!" Sarah screamed, shaking her head fiercely as the shadows edged closer. "We can't. They're lying." But as she spoke, the room brightened, the runes pulsing in answer. Sarah could see the faces clearly now, children lost in time, their eyes begging for release. She felt the pull in her gut, a wave of sympathy mixing with her fear, threatening to drown her. "Mommy!" Lily cried, pointing. One figure, a girl with ash-gray skin, reached out. "Please. You must help us. It's the only way. Forget them." Sarah shouted, her voice barely holding together. As the shadows pressed in, she felt the crushing weight of despair, their cries wrapping around her, wanting to consume her hope, and then, a single scream pierced the cacophony, startling her to the bone. "Mom!" A familiar voice, an adult voice. Who was that? Jamie gasped, confusion etched on his small, pale face. Sarah's heart dropped, recognizing the voice. It sounded like her own mother, the one she lost years ago, swallowed by the abyss of time and memory. "Mommy, it can't be," Jamie trembled. "Stay together," Sarah commanded, but the temptation grew stronger. The shadows ebbed and flowed, brushing against her, igniting forgotten memories and unresolved feelings. "Sarah," the whisper echoed in her mind, warm and sorrowful. Each syllable drew her closer, reminding her of days filled with laughter and love. "Help us be free." "No." She stumbled back, a chill coating her spine. "You're not real." The moment stretched, expanding in a sea of silence, pulling at her like an undertow. The shadows paused, hissing softly as if savoring her anguish, relishing the taste of her doubt. Lily's small hand quivered in Sarah's grasp, her innocence despairing. "Mommy, please." With newfound resolve, Sarah shouted, "We will not be your prisoners." Summoning every ounce of courage, she focused on the swirling light around them, feeling its warmth course through her. The darkness faltered, recoiling from her defiance. But the shadows writhed, angered, twisting into forms even more terrifying, unfurling like nightmarish flowers. A guttural growl rolled through the air as it coalesced into a massive shape, something ancient and powerful. "Flee! Now!" Sarah seized her children, dragging them backward, but the shadows seemed to manifest a force of gravity, pulling them deeper. And then came the thunderous roar, shaking the ground, sending splinters through her heart. "You cannot escape." In an instant, the swirling light flickered, dimmed. A new echo of laughter unfurled from the depths, a promise of failure, a beckoning to surrender. Sarah's heart raced. Their next move could seal their fate. What if the whispers truly held the key to freedom or led them to the abyss? As the shadows lunged, she grasped the lantern tightly, praying it would guide them through the storm. And just before the darkness closed in, she glimpsed one last symbol shimmering in the light, a sigil she hadn't noticed before, as if it had appeared from nowhere, exuding a powerful energy that could either protect them or obliterate them forever. "Mommy!" Jamie screamed as the walls shook violently, their world shifting once again. What did that symbol mean? And was it the beacon of hope they desperately needed, or the final nail in their coffin? The ground quaked beneath Sarah's feet, each tremor jolting her to the reality of their perilous situation. Darkness clawed at her vision, suffocating, as the shadows writhed like serpents intent on dragging them into an eternal night. The sigil glowed with a hopeful luminescence, but ominously, Sarah felt the very air shift, as though the realm itself was conspiring against them. "Mom, what is happening?" Jamie shouted, panic edging higher in his voice. "I don't know." She gripped the lantern tighter, its light flickering in response to her fear. Desperation surged through her. The ominous figures beckoned with twisted smiles, their voices a cruel blend of her childhood nightmares. "We have to trust it," she said, forcing herself to believe. "It might be our only chance." But just as she took a deep breath, the laughing shifted, growing more sinister. "You'll only make things worse. We are here to help you." The word slithered through the air, oily and slick, wrapping around her resolve like a vice. "Get back." She took a step forward, brandishing the lantern. The flickering light struggled against the encroaching shadows, but she felt its energy resonating, pulling her towards that strange symbol. "What do you want?" Sarah shouted, the sound bouncing off the walls, mocking her. "Freedom," the shadows hissed, their eyes narrowing into slits. They lurked close now, and she could see the hollow despair etched into their features. It was a reflection of her own fears, and for a moment, she hesitated. "Mommy?" Lily's whisper broke through her internal battle. The little girl's face showed a mix of confusion and fear so profound that it twisted Sarah's gut. "Are we going to die?" "No." The word burst from Sarah, sharp as shattered glass. "We're going to find a way out." But the shadows drew near, elongating, as if trying to siphon the very light from her. Then, with a sudden chill, the shadows lunged forward. Sarah's survival instinct surged, she yanked her children close and turned toward the symbol. It pulsed with energy, a heartbeat among the screams. Driven by an instinct she couldn't comprehend, Sarah raced toward it. "Mom, wait!" Jamie cried out as the darkness surged around them, its grip tightening, like claws digging into flesh. The air suffocated her, panic urging her to move faster even as the world splintered and cracked. "Hold on!" Sarah shouted, her voice booming against the chaos. The sigil flickered, and the air became a swirling vortex of light and shadow. A pulse of warmth burst around her, flooding her senses. She felt Jamie's hand in her grip, and Lily's small fingers wrapped tight around her waist. They surged forward, almost in slow motion against the tidal wave of darkness. Help! The whispers were feral now, turned from pleading to threatening, spewing venom. "You can't escape, bring us back." The closer they got to the sigil, the harder it became to breathe. She could feel the shadows reaching, clawing, pulling at her hair and clothing like they wanted to claim her. A cacophony of voices merged in a dreadful harmony, the wording shifting and indistinct. There was a familiarity to the call, one that nearly dragged her to her knees with nostalgia, and then, with one final burst of strength, they crossed into the sphere of light. The air crackled as they were enveloped by a bright flood, silencing the wails. The warmth washed over her, but the shadows shrieked in rage, their twisted forms twisting and contorting, unable to breach this newfound sanctuary. But in seconds, the light began to dim. It felt like the flicker of a dying flame. "Push through." Sarah yelled, feeling the urgency tighten around her throat. In here. Something pulled at her from within the glow. A figure stood just beyond the threshold, a silhouette framed in light. It was a woman, familiar. Sarah. The voice called, this time soothing, motherly. Mom. She gasped, heart pounding. The shadows screamed, their rage palpable as tendrils rippled towards her, desperate to pull her back. Come here. Her mother called. Mommy. No. Jamie begged, shaking his head, terror in his eyes. For one heart-stopping moment, Sarah had to choose. Trust me. Her mother insisted, beckoning desperately. Was this a gateway to salvation or the entrapment of a different form? The darkness loomed, hungry and spiteful, a monstrous shadow desperately reaching for its prey. As despair gripped her soul, she felt the stranglehold of the shadows tighten around her. Her mother's face shimmered with hope, but the growing darkness behind her pulsed with malice. Mom! Lily screamed, pulling on her shirt. What did this all mean? What lay behind that beckoning light? Would she abandon her children to chase after a mirage? Caught in a paralyzing moment, she exhaled, heart racing, as the shadows writhed behind her, shrieking for their victory. And then a faint whisper shattered her thoughts, a single word that sent chills racing down her spine: betrayal. What truth lay in that darkness? What would it cost to find out? The shimmering light flickered once more, the warmth radiating like a heartbeat amid the chaos. Sarah felt the magnetic pull of her mother's figure and the shadows clamoring behind her like wild beasts. They surged toward her in angry waves, fingers reaching for anything they could grasp, a heartbeat away from stealing her children. Mommy? Jamie tugged fiercely at her, his face a mix of fear and confusion. We can't go there. Lily pressed closer, her small voice trembling. Please don't leave us. Trust me. Sarah shouted, torn. She felt the gnawing instinct to run towards the promise of safety, but her heart ached with the burden of motherhood. She was entrusted with their lives, they relied on her courage, but the shadows were deceptive, whispering their dreadful songs. Betrayal, come join us, you will never escape. They clawed at Sarah's resolve, clawing, pulling her toward their dark embrace. The air grew thick, choking. Panic blasted through her mind like a cannon, desperate thoughts colliding. Glancing back at her mother, alluring visage of comfort, she felt uncertainty bloom. What if this was a trick? Stay close. She yelled, her grip tightening around her children's hands. The brightness of the symbol pulsed with urgency, urging her to act while the shadows prepared for their final assault. Stay in the light. With determination burning in her chest, she pulled Jamie and Lily toward the sigil, racing against the darkness that clawed and hungered. The sigil glimmered brighter, a beacon among the despair, pulsating like a heartbeat. The whispers became screams, the shadows howling in protest, swirling and bubbling, threatening to cover her family. Here. Look at the light. Sarah coaxed, her voice electric with urgency. Mom! Jamie cried as the swirling chaos retaliated, grabbing at him with unyielding force, but Sarah was already moving, propelling them closer to the sigil's radiant barrier. It was their only chance. In a breathtaking moment, they crashed through the faded boundary of the sigil just as the shadows lunged, their cries a cacophony of rage behind them. The world twisted, bending and snapping like a rubber band until the shadows retreated, a scalding whisper fading into silence. Sarah stumbled into the vibrant light, clutching Jamie and Lily against her body. They landed in a meadow when the brightness settled, a serene expanse surrounded by rolling hills and a vast expanse of sky. The air shimmered with tranquility, filled with intoxicating scents of wildflowers and grass. What happened? Jamie looked around, blinking in disbelief as he fought to comprehend the sudden change. We're free? Lily asked with wide eyes, drawing in the peacefulness surrounding them. But deep down, a nagging fear lingered. Sarah glanced back, realizing the shadows had clawed at their heels. They were gone, but their whispers lingered, a persistent echo in her mind. It worked. she exclaimed, relief flooding her as she felt the warmth of the sun on her face. But doubt trickled in like rainwater through a cracked dam. Her fight wasn't over. The lessons learned echoed loudly through her heart, woven into the lessons of motherhood, worthiness, and survival. She knelt down, holding her children close. We escaped the darkness, but we need to remember. We can't let it come back. Lily nodded, her little fingers tangling in Sarah's hair. We can be brave, Mommy. Yes, Jamie added, determination glimmering in his eyes. Together. Together. That notion surged through Sarah, igniting a warm certainty. They would create their new life amidst the brighter memories, forever building a sanctuary against the shadows that longed to return. Suddenly, a familiar voice called from afar. Her mother, hazy, ethereal, stood at the edge of the meadow, smile warm and reassuring. I'm proud of you, Sarah. You found the light. You protected them. The moment held her in its embrace, freezing time even as the waves of memories surged like a flood once more. She could let fear steal her future, or reach for hope, an unwavering commitment to love and life. Mom! She wanted to run to the figure, but hesitation gripped her heart, battling her longing to embrace the ghost of the past. Remember the choice you made. Cherish your children. Embrace the light, but acknowledge the darkness. You cannot forget. Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks as her mother shimmered and began to fade. I love you. Each word lingered like a gust of wind, reassuring and tender. As her mother's presence dwindled, Sarah looked to Jamie and Lily. Their faces brightened in the lush expanse of safety they had forged together. Let us go home, she whispered, her heart swelling with newfound strength. United, they walked on into the sunlight, forging a path forward among wildflowers, laughter, and love. But she could never forget the whispers waiting at the edge of the woods. They had escaped, but their journey of reconciliation between light and dark had truly just begun. As they stepped into the horizon, a single whisper echoed back through the trees, remember. And they did. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories heading your way. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Trust me, it makes a huge difference. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. What will happen next? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything.